Good morning. Happy New Year. Welcome to the first of 2024. Super excited about the coming year. I think it's going to be amazing. Let's see what we discover from the Publishing Goblins Oracle die today. Just getting out all our die. There we go. All right. I'm really excited to see where this takes us. Oh, don't run away on me now. I haven't even had a chance to check that yet. All right, 2024, January. Let's see where we're at. And one went flying, so we know we don't have to worry about that one. One went off the mat. Huh, kind of interesting. There's a few on the edge of the core on here, but not really jumping right in. So this should be very interesting. And we're going to start off, of course, with the chaos die to see what it's telling us, and it is showing up under fated. So that could be really interesting. I'm not terribly surprised, but it is the shadow that is showing up. So you can see a little figure there that casts a shadow, and it's showing up under fated. Um, so it says all items in this quarter are read in reverse or in shadow. So we have four other die that are going to be read for their shadow side in this particular reading. I find it really interesting. And oh, Happy New Year, Heather. Thanks everybody for popping in. It's awesome that you're here. This is going to be very interesting because shadow is fated, which means we're going to have to do some shadow work this year. And of course, this is for January, so we're jumping right into it. And so when I look at those die, I'm going to be looking at the shadow side of what those die are saying. So that's where we are with that. We're going to check fate because sometimes that tells us to move some of the die. So let's see what we get for that one. And fate is showing up. Where is fate showing up? Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's the one that jumped off the table. I don't see it here. Okay. So it's probably wandered off, which means it's not going to be relevant to today's reading, so we don't have to worry about it. We will continue. Oh, in fact, it's funny. It is just off the mat. So the fate die is not showing up for today's reading. We will just ignore it. And we will go to the first of our die. And the first one is the actions die. And today it is showing up. Where is it showing up? Or is it gone too? Sometimes a few of them jump off the mat and I'm like, okay, I guess that's one that I don't have to look at today. And oh, I do see that one. It's showing up under present and it shows somebody being run through with a sword. So that's encouraging. That one is about sacrifice. So it speaks to giving something up that we don't want to, typically for the better. Well, that makes a lot of sense in January. And hi, Tammy. Thanks for jumping in. Um, it makes a lot of sense for January because it's usually the time where we start to think about new beginnings. What do we want to create for ourselves this year? And what do we need to sacrifice along the way? And maybe we've been indulgent, over Christmas. We've been maybe eating all the wrong things and just relaxing, having a good time. It's like, okay, it's January. It's time to get down to business. What do I want to change? And what is that going to require of me in order to bring about that change? So that's what I see the sacrifice die meaning for us. And it's in the present, which means get on it, people. Whatever it is you're going to do, just get started. Think of it as don't worry about all the steps to come after. What's the first step? What's the first thing you need to do to get this going? time to get on it. Okay, the alchemist die is also showing up in the present, and it is showing up as the symbol for copper. So it looks like that. And it's gathering energy around it like a lightning rod. And so when we see it here, it's asking you to look into what things in your life fuel you. So it makes perfect sense that it's showing up in the present, saying there's something to sacrifice to get going on your goals for this year. And if any of you have been watching, I've started on my podcast series on my YouTube channel, Bonita K. Hutchison on YouTube, a series on goal setting. So this is just playing right into it, which is totally awesome. And you saw me just drop the die, so we know I didn't create this in advance. So I love how everything just kind of pulls it all together. And Alex, I see you're asking if I'm pulling cards after. Can I pull one for you? Um, I will come on later on today, so I'll announce that I'm going to do mini readings, so everybody has a chance to pop in. So I will let you guys know when I'm doing that. I'm going to basically do this, get some breakfast, and go for my morning walk. Um, so this is showing that there's energy for the sacrifice, for the changes that you're making for this year. So if you're starting to feel like, yep, ready to get going on it, you're right. This is the time to do it. Okay, the alley die is showing up as a little dude with the top hat who's dancing. Now, interesting, he's showing up under Fated. And remember, the Chaos die said we have to read the shadow version for anything that comes up with that. And so it says here, performance itself is valueless. It does not impart good or bad things. Deception exists here, as does validation. When it's present in a reading, you merely need to know that performance is in action. In shadow, performance is a warning that the facade is in danger or the cause of danger itself. So what that means is we have shadow work to do this year. Any way you may have been fooling yourself, telling yourself, that's not true, I don't need to look at that, the masks are coming off. The facade is gone. You're going to have to turn and face anything you've been in denial about your life, yourself, wherever you've been performing, wherever you've been pretending, you're not going to be allowed to continue to do that. So this is the month to really look at what have I not been wanting to accept and acknowledge and work on that now I have to because it's in my face. I've got to deal with it. So I'm already feeling January is an exciting month because we've got the energy to make changes. We're going to have to make a sacrifice starting now. But we're also going to be looking at our shadow, any way that we have been telling ourselves, I don't need to pay attention to this when you do. The attentions die is showing up where? I wonder if it also jumped off the mat. Oh, no, there it is. Also under Fated, also needing to look at the shadow side of it. And it is whole. it's a hole. And it says, in shadow, this face often deals with what ends up bubbling back up out of this strange pit of our minds, coming back up because of similar new events or things recurring. A person you want to forget coming back in your life, for example. This is crawling out of the pits, basically to look at something. So again, very interesting, isn't it? That along with the one that just said, no more pretense, whatever you've been denying, you're going to have to look at. The whole is saying stuff is going to bubble up to the surface that you've been pushing down inside and not wanting to look at and ignoring in your life. So lots of triggers this month. It's like the universe is saying, you got work to do. And I'm going to place in front of you the triggers to get you to do the work because you're not going to be able to push things back under the rug anymore. So I suspect it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to be pretty powerful as well. The autumn die went off the table. We don't need to look at that one. The chaos die we've already looked at. And that's the one to say anything around it in that quadrant view as shadow. The elements die is showing up right at the edge of the core. I'm going to say it's in the same quadrant as the shadow one. So we're going to see what the shadow of that one is, and it has to do with earth. In shadow, earth is the rotting of our roots, a reminder that when we give up on a branch, it dies and remains until cut down. In the same way, abandoned roots may die or they may draw unwanted energy. So how does that relate to what we just saw? Whatever this situation is that you haven't wanted to look at, that you now have to look at, you're going to have to do something about it. It might be cutting away a relationship that doesn't work, leaving a job that doesn't work. But it's saying whatever old stuff you have not been willing to look at, it's draining you of energy. You're going to have to deal with it. It might even be paperwork you haven't wanted to get around to. It might be that it's time to do some cleaning up and move stuff out of your home that's taking up space and it's draining you because you haven't been dealing with it. So January, cleanup time, get the job done, get at her. Okay. And we don't have to deal with the fake die because it jumped off the mat. And the goblin die comes up. I always find the goblin die so cute. It's showing up under the present. And it shows the little guy with a little lightning striking at his head. And so with that one, it's inspiration, which makes total sense. Outside forces coming to act around and within you. So again, this is so interesting to me that we're told we have to make a sacrifice this month. Um, there's going to be a lot of energy pulling toward us to do that work, and we're going to be inspired. So whatever is coming up this month that's going to inspire us to start taking action on it, the Fated says ultimately we're going to be dealing with our shadow. So it's going to be a real time of personal growth for all of us. And it's because if you've watched my forecast from previous months, it was all building toward this. It was dealing with your karma from the past, working through the things you hadn't dealt with. So you'd have the energy to do this month. So it just makes perfect sense. So the influences die comes up, and it is, this time it's a cute little ghost, and it's sitting under momentum. So that's our little ghost. And it is basically saying it informs you something is behind something else. It's like the haunting of, it might be somebody else's attention or things from the past. So again, it's saying, whatever you've not wanted to look at, as you do this work in the present, as you go, okay, I'm going to make a sacrifice because there's a goal I want to achieve. I'm feeling inspired. Whatever has been maybe an old pattern that runs counter to what you want to do, you're going to feel it. It's going to come up for you and you're going to go, okay, now it's time to bring that to consciousness and deal with it and not let it sabotage me anymore. Okay, the kindness die is just on the edge of the past coming into the present, and it shows somebody holding a present. So it says gifted. It's basically, it's something you have graciously gifted to another, or it might be the need for you to do so. It can be like the thankless favor, like you do something for somebody, but you may not be getting anything back from it. So the sense that I have with that one, moving from the past into the present, um, it's it's basically offering something without expecting anything back. In this sense, it's like whatever the sacrifice is that you're making in the present, it's been inspired by. It can be like, I did this, and it felt good to do this, and I want more of that feeling good. What am I prepared to do to get there? So, for example, if we're volunteering for an organization, maybe it's hard work sometimes. And the only thanks we get for it is the good feeling of having done that work. So it's that feeling of, I want to make a difference. I want to improve myself in some way. I don't need praise or thanks for it. I want the good feeling of having evolved a little. And then that charges into that present situation of I'm willing to make the sacrifice and I'm inspired. I want to do more. I want to grow more and I'm ready to do it. I'm really liking the way the die are working out this month. I find every month it's quite almost bizarre how everything lays out so clearly and just keeps directing us forward in our growth. So if you haven't caught previous months, I'd say start watching from like the fall on. You can catch everything on my YouTube channel at Benita K. Hudson. And you'll see there's been a real progression in terms of what we've been invited to do in order to grow. So the next one is the longings one. And it's interesting because this is also uh, goes with the card that represents the reading this time. Happy New Year, Gloria. Thank you. I wish everybody a happy new year. I'm excited that you're here and starting off the year with me. So this is the card we got. And with this card, it's called When They Who Hunger. It brings a seed of insatiable hunger with it. It's a drive to want more, to want to do more. So it makes a lot of sense because everything we're getting here is a real drive this month to go, I want more. I want to do more. I want to accomplish more. Let's get at it. That card just makes perfect sense. So the die that goes with it in the present shows a hand. And it's about touch. So it says touch is most often simply about the need for human connection. The need to be touched can be the need to grasp something firmly, to hold on to something that brings joy, that feeds a need. So it can be physical touch. It can also just be that need to connect. So again, it makes total sense that it's showing up in the present with the willingness to make a sacrifice, the inspiration and the energy to move forward. It's, I want connection. So say there's some way that whatever pattern you've been running has kept you isolated, disconnected. This month you're like, enough of that. I want in. I want in on life, and I'm willing to do what it takes to build that connection, to get the energy, to make the sacrifice to get where I need to go. The majors die shows up, and it's underfated. It's working with the shadow, and the one we're getting is the binary one. So we'll see how that one plays a part here. So it says here in shadow, it's an ultimatum, unfair, unnecessary, and difficult. Um, so the sense I get with that is we're really going to be up against it with our shadow. We're not going to be able to pretend anymore. Masks off, getting real time. We're going to be, and we might find it triggers some irritation for us as we have to do that work. So that's underfated. So it's what we're moving toward. A lot of times, once we place intent, once we say, this is what I'm going to do, these are the changes I'm going to make, the universe cooperates with us and it pushes us up against our stuff. It creates scenarios to trigger us to do the work. So that's how that looks to me. Happy New Year, Tanya. Thank you so much for being here. It's Tanya's been with me for a long time, ever since I was in Ontario. And I just appreciate that you're still along for the journey with me. Thank you. Okay, the Mariner's die is showing up under history. It shows a little bird in flight. Okay, and it's the gull. And it says it flies in and screams at you while it steals fish, fries, or whatever it needs to survive. Um, They are the face of being unabashedly yourself. This makes so much sense to me because last month we had so many die sitting in the past. All the work we were doing to finally finish processing stuff from the past we hadn't been dealing with, so we would have the energy to make the changes we're making now. So interesting to me, one of the few die sitting in the past in history is the one that just says, I'm just being me. No apologies. I'm going to be myself. Here I am, world. And so it makes sense. It really shows we've done that work. We've dealt with the stuff in the past we weren't dealing with. Now we're ready to move forward. So there's a real progression here with the die over the months that we've been doing the spread. This is why whenever I do my forecast now, I'm using this set. It's just so bang on and it's so detailed. I just find that really helpful. So the metamorphosis die is also showing up under fated, which means we have to look at the shadow side of it. And it shows the butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. I don't know if you can make that out. It's a little bit hard to see. And so for that one, in shadow, it says, know that this is a dangerous place, a space where you've made yourself vulnerable to share what has long been private. Let yourself have feelings over it, but also be careful not to let the responses spiral you. This was not created for the world, it was created for you. So it's basically saying, with doing the shadow work, it's going to feel vulnerable for you. It always is. Because when we're doing shadow work, we're looking at the things about ourselves we don't want to see. We don't want the world to see. Maybe we don't even want to believe that's who we actually are. But I can tell you from having done a lot of shadow work, it's dark, it's scary, but there's beauty there, there's richness there, there's treasure there. A lot of your energy, a lot of your insight is hidden in the shadow. It's trapped there. So when you start doing shadow work, yeah, it's going to be messy. It's going to be hard, but in the end, it's going to be worth it. So it's just saying, there's going to be some shakeups with that. Just don't let it spiral you. Just accept that the shakeup is part of the growth and just go with it. You know, you've placed the intent in the present to make changes. Don't expect that to always be a smooth journey. Not all change is incremental, and really powerful change, it's going to feel powerful. It's going to shake you up. That's not a bad thing. Just think of it as everybody that's on here right now watching this is also doing this with you. And so you're not alone in the journey. And you know, if things are really shaking you up and you're having a hard time, do a session with me. Let's get to the core of it and get you on your way. You know, I've got that ability to tune into what is the core pattern that's been there your whole life? How is it bringing stuff up for you now? How is it affecting your choices? And what do you need to do to move forward? Let's get you going. Let's make this happen. All right, the obstacles die is showing up just on the edge of the core under future, and it's a rose. So we're going to see what that one means. It's peace. Isn't that nice? So when it shows up at the core, it speaks to the difficulty of reaching, maintaining, or surviving what peace looks like. Peace in the core speaks to these things being overwhelming, disheartening, or in some ways always present in the battle you fought. So in other words, because it's just at the edge, it's just speaking to the fact that moving into the future, you're going to start going, oh, I placed the intent to do this work. I've started the work. There's some discomfort here. This is uncomfortable. This is difficult. I've got this work to do, and I'm feeling it coming up for me. Gloria says, I agree. You must do the work, shadow, to move forward to the light, bringing up patterns or old patterns to make, I just gotta hit that, make new ones. This is where I found my true authenticity. Absolutely, Gloria. I couldn't agree with you more. If we don't do the shadow work, it will continue to haunt us until we do. So are we here to really live, or are we just trying not to die? You know, to be fully alive is as Pema Chodron said, is to be thrown out of the nest continually. So let's embrace that. The next die, which is the relationships die, is showing up under future as well. And it's called apart. So it shows two people standing apart from each other. So it often denotes some sort of a breakup. And again, we know we're going into shadow work in the future, and we've already looked at how we're going to be looking at where do I need to clean up an old situation that's not working anymore. So there may be relationships where you go, for a long time I've pretended this is okay, but it's not okay. It's not working, and I'm going to have to do something about it. And remember, when you do that, you're freeing up energy for your transformation. If we're applying energy to people and nothing's coming back to us, it's just taking us down. That's energy we gave away that could have been used to move in the direction that we need to move. And remember, as you do the work, as you shift and change, the universe around you changes because it's a reflection of your consciousness, which means people drop away, situations drop away, and it makes space for new people and situations to come in that are a reflection of the person you're becoming. So if you're hanging on to the old, you may actually be, putting a ball and chain around your leg. You'll get somewhere eventually, but it'll take you longer because so much energy is still going toward a person or situation that's not a reflection of the direction that you're going. And sometimes it just means there's a change in the situation. Maybe you're not connecting as much as you normally would. Maybe you're speaking your mind and the truth, and that person steps away because they can't reflect that. It doesn't feel right for them. And that's fair. They may not be on the same journey as you. They don't have to come along with you. They can make that choice to step away. And that might be right for them, and it might be right for you. So do the work you need to do on yourself. Walk your path. Don't try to control what other people are doing. Accept that life is impermanent and there is a flow. There's an ebb and flow to relationships. So as we grow and change, not everybody is going to be our reflection. Maybe they'll come back in later as they shift, but don't attach to that. Just walk your own path. Now we have another one that's showing up in the core, and you see it's a hand throwing all these, looks like flowers up into the air, and it's called whimsy. So I find this one really interesting. It represents an absolute period of time or place where others exist at the whim of another. It's to be understood that all the die in the reading come back to this and at their core only exist because of this person shifting things to be the way they desire them. So in other words, it's saying you're placing intent this month to make big changes. Everything that happens is part of you having placed that intent. So I remember at one time placing the intent to have a comfortable, affluent life doing the work I love. The very next day, I got let go from a yoga studio that I was teaching at. My students were happy with me. Somehow the owner was not. That was the universe cooperating with my intent. It removed me from a position where I was putting out a lot of energy, but it wasn't bringing me abundance. The universe was saying, you need to place more time serving in the capacity as a psychic coach. So it removed that obstacle. I was aware enough to know that's what was happening, but it's very easy for us to go, hey, I placed the intent for abundance and I just lost my job. What gives? It really means having that bigger picture and recognizing the universe is working on our behalf, but it's going to remove obstacles, even if we're attached to them. And it's going to push us up against the patterns we need to work on. It's not always comfortable work. So rather than try to control for outcome, do your best once you place intent to surrender and let the universe take you where you need to go. All right, our next die is the Suits die. And that one shows up just in the past as well as a star. Okay. Happy New Year, Elizabeth. I'm so glad you guys popped in with me this morning. I really appreciate it. Okay, so this one says, um, discs are a direct tarot reference. They speak to the material world of things grounded in reality, finances and holdings, merchandise and owned objects. So this is like the money face. Um, and it can also be our bodies. It's anything material. So what it's saying is the work you did in the past is grounded. You've done it. It's not amorphous. It's clear. And it's that clear cutness of having done that work, which we talked about in previous months. You now have that grounding to then move forward and to evolve, to do the work you're here to do. Okay. The summer die shows up in the future. Oh, okay. Can you guys still hear me? Yes? Okay. You can still hear me? That's awesome. Thank you. I had a call come through and it said my recording had ended. Okay, super. So you might not have heard what I was saying about the fist. It's about debates, fights, verbal fights, that sort of thing. It's showing up in the future. So again, it's basically saying what's going to happen is because we place the intent to do some work, there's going to be some really difficult discussions with people. It might just be one, but it'll be something that again triggers you to do this deep work. That's coming up for you. You're going to have to do it. Welcome it. Welcome it. You said at the beginning of January, I've got work to do. I'm willing to make some sacrifices. I'm willing to make some changes. And the universe is cooperating with you. And it's going to create a situation that's going to really make it obvious for you. That's the situation that Benita was talking about. That's what I need to address. There it is. And as I address it, I'm going to become more real. I'm going to face my shadow. I'm going to do the work. And thank you, universe, for placing that situation in front of me so I could be really clear and I could see it. The winter die shows up also in the present, and it is snow. So we're not seeing any snow outside right now, but we got it on the die. So we'll see. Maybe it means we're getting snow. I don't know. um, so what it's saying is it might be a softening and covering things we've forgotten or things we can afford to forget. Wipe it away to truly remember its shape. In other words, it's saying in this situation, um, there may be some reprieve. Tanya says, I want snow. Well, good for you. I'm really glad we don't have it right now. I got a little bit soft living in the West where we don't get as much sometimes. Um, so when I'm looking at that one, it's uh, the way it's talking about the softening of something that's forgotten. It seems to me it's saying in the present, you're going to start to become aware of these things you need to work on. It's just not going to feel as strong as it will going forward. So you might get a little bit of a reprieve in the next week or so, but then it's going to start building. The wounds die comes up also in the present. We see this little dude who's bent over. And it says gutted, speaks to someone who feels so utterly destroyed, empty, often from a betrayal or a blindsiding or horrible surprise. So it's not having suspected the situation. Or it might be losing something you didn't realize was at the core of your situation. Um, so given what we're seeing here and given all the die that surround it, my sense of it is once you've placed the intent to do the work, um, you might encounter a really jarring situation. It might even be the jarring situation is the one that goes, yep, okay, fine. It's time I did something about this. I'm not going to just accept this anymore. And you're motivated to make a change. Sometimes for people, that's a work or relationship situation where it's really uncomfortable to step out of to step out of the familiar, even if it's not a good situation, and step into the unknown. But you start to realize it's necessary. So I see that as the impetus to get you to do the work. There's inspiration here, don't forget. There's the energy to do the work. The snow might also be the softness of friends supporting you as you go forward. And then as we move into the fated section, a lot of shadow work. And a lot of times what that is when we're dealing with a situation, we go, how did I end up here? What was I not seeing? What was I not seeing about myself that I need to work on, that I need to change? Um, and it's a real wake up call. It makes us go, whoa, I need to do some work on this. So that's what I'm seeing for us for this month. It's not going to be easy, but if you turn and you face your shadow, the energy that you have, the awareness that you have, the love of self, the strength, the power you derive from doing the work, I guarantee you it's well worth doing. So I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for joining me. Have an amazing new year. I will pop in later on to do some mini readings. I've got some calls to deal with first, and I'll catch up with you guys later. Have an awesome day. Mwah. Love you. Bye for now.